Oh my God, no! No, you didn't do that!
He's an animal. He's inhumane.
Hunted these teens down, butchered them with machetes, and beat them with baseball bats.
MS-13, these are animals. They're coming into our country. We're getting them out.
Whoever did this is depraved.
It was one stunning murder after the next when 6 teenagers turned up dead.
The later discovery of many other buried bodies on Long Island prompted federal law enforcement to come here to help local police crack down on MS-13 on Long Island.
Beneath the surface of Brentwood, New York, bodies litter the soil, bodies that paint a grim picture of the hold the MS-13 gang has on the suburban community.
For some people, Long Island means summer in the Hamptons, but not far away from the mansions on the beach, MS-13 has been on a killing spree.
Oh my God, no! No, you didn't do that!
In the last 2 years, the FBI says they've committed more than 20 murders on Long Island.
With their violence and terror on the rise, federal agents made a pact to crack down on those responsible for the senseless murders. One man in particular came under their radar after the brutal butchering of 2 high school girls, Nisa, Mickens and Kayla Cuevas. His name is Alexi Saenz, the high-ranking gang leader of the Brentwood Central Islip chapter of the sailors' clique of the MS-13, one of the more powerful, violent, and well-established cliques on the east coast of the United States.
They were innocent victims of the brutal street gang MS-13. Their murders and the later discovery of many other buried bodies on Long Island prompted federal law enforcement to come here to help local police crack down on MS-13 on Long Island.
MS-13, these are animals. They're coming into our country. We're getting them out.
Here lie the stories of the 8 ruthlessly slain victims along his trail of blood, violence and murder between 2016 and 2017 that forced federal agents to hunt, capture and imprison the tyrant. On January 28, 2016, Alexi Saenz and other MS-13 members and associates were at the Jocarina Deli in Brentwood, where they saw 29-year-old Michael Johnson and claimed to recognize him as a member of the rival Blood Street gang. At that point, Johnson was marked as their food, a reference to their intention to murder him. Alexi Saenz contacted several other MS-13 members, informing them of the plan to kill Johnson, and instructed them to bring weapons, including a machete and a baseball bat, to a wooded area in Brentwood. Alexi Saenz then lured Johnson to that secluded meeting location under the guise of having a smoke. That's when he and his MS-13 associates ambushed Johnson, striking him with the baseball bat, stabbing him with a knife, and taking turns hacking him with the machete. They fled after hearing police sirens in the area. Less than 1 week after his murder on February 2, 2016, members of the SCPD responded to a 911 call about a body found in the woods by a passerby and recovered Johnson's body. An innocent life tragically lost all because he was mistaken for someone from a rival gang.
Saenz also pleaded guilty to the 2016 murder of Michael Johnson, who gang members mistook as a member of a rival gang.
My son was harmless. Harmless. I just don't understand.
In early 2016, Alexi Saenz and his fellow sailors' clique members decided to green-light the murder of 19-year-old Oscar Acosta, under suspicion he was associating with the rival 18th Street gang, after previously aligning himself with MS-13. On April 29, 2016, MS-13 members met Acosta in a wooded area near an elementary school in Brentwood, where he had been lured. That would be the last time his mother ever saw him. Her son disappeared without a trace. As far as she knew, Acosta left to play soccer and was never heard from again.
Each night, Maria Arias leaves her Brentwood home, going from business to business, neighbor to neighbor, putting up flyers with family members hoping to find her only son. 19-year-old Oscar Acosta walked out of his home on Thomas Street 11 days ago. No money, no bags, and his mom says no reason to run away.
Que no puedo dormir.
Maria says she can't sleep, wondering what happened to her son. The high school senior told his cousin he was going to a nearby park in Brentwood to play soccer. He hasn't been seen since, and now Suffolk County Police suspect foul play. Arias told me in Spanish it's been very hard, thinking the worst while keeping her faith in God that her son will return home soon.
Court documents detail the truth about his disappearance. After being lured by MS-13, they brutally beat him with tree limbs, knocking him unconscious, then bound his hands and feet, wrapped an article of clothing around his mouth to prevent him from making noise, and summoned other MS-13 members, including Alexi Saenz. The MS-13 members loaded Acosta into the trunk of Alexi Saenz's car and drove to a more secluded area in Brentwood near the abandoned Pilgrim State Psychiatric Hospital. At the direction of Alexi Saenz, the MS-13 members removed Acosta, who was still alive, from the trunk and carried him deeper into the woods, where they took turns hacking him to death with a machete. Acosta's body was discovered by law enforcement nearly 5 months later in a shallow grave on September 16, 2016. His mother's hopes of seeing her son walk through the front door once more was crushed.
Arias says that she has been just looking out the window, hoping to see her son walk up the driveway and into the front door.
On September 4, 2016, Alexi Saenz, accompanied by other MS-13 members, went hunting for their rivals. They separated into several cars and drove around central Islip and Brentwood until Alexi's group spotted 27-year-old Marcus Bohannon walking along Lowell Avenue in central Islip in the early morning hours of September 5th. Suspecting that he was a member of the rival Bloods gang, 2 MS-13 members carrying firearms got out of the vehicle, approached him and started shooting. Alexi Saenz then drove them away. Marcus was struck 9 times, including in his head, neck and chest, and died from his wounds. Just 8 days after he orchestrated the death of Marcus Bohannon, Alexi Saenz greenlit one of the most heinous murders that plunged the city into rage and tears. On September 13, 2016, his clique brutally massacred 15-year-old Nisa Mickens and 16-year-old Kayla Cuevas, both students at Brentwood High School. According to court details, in the months leading up to the murders, Kayla was involved in a series of disputes with members and associates of MS-13. Approximately 1 week before the murders, these disputes escalated when Kayla and several friends were involved in an altercation with MS-13 members at Brentwood High School. After that incident, the MS-13 members vowed to seek revenge against her. On the evening of September 13, 2016, Alexi Saenz and his MS-13 clique were driving in separate cars around Brentwood in search of rival gang members. One group of MS-13 members spotted Kayla and Mickens walking down residential Starley Street. Recognizing Kayla, they called Alexi Saenz, and he granted permission to end their life. Several MS-13 members, including Alexi's brother Javier Castillo, then chased down both girls and not only bludgeoned them with bats, but hacked them to death with machetes, while Alexi's car drove around, watching for police. They were beaten so severely, the sturdy wooden bats broke after repeated forceful impact, as the girls could do nothing but scream in agony.
Kayla Cuevas and Nisa Mickens were set upon with machetes and a bat. The now 29-year-old admitted in court because one had a dispute with other MS-13 members. Prosecutors say he buried part of the bat in the woods next to his house.
Admitted in court he targeted the girls later and beat them so hard the baseball bat he used broke. That caused the victims' family members to leave the courtroom in tears.
He's an animal. He's inhumane. I mean, would he have did that to his own family member, a sister or a cousin or somebody?
Mother of Nisa Mickens keeps her daughter with her always, with Nisa's signature tattooed to her arm.
I just want it done. They need to pay for what they did. She wanted to do what me and her father, our career was nursing.
Nisa Mickens, whose body was discovered later that evening on Starley Street, not far from Cuevas' home, sustained significant sharp force trauma to her face and blunt force trauma to her head. Kayla, whose body was discovered the following day behind a house adjacent to where Mickens' body was found, sustained significant blunt force trauma to her head and body and multiple lacerations. The town was in turmoil, while blood continued to stain the once safe streets. But that tragedy was far from the end of Alexi's terrifying reign.
Cuevas' heartbroken sister is comforted by friends in the yard where 16-year-old Kayla's body was discovered Wednesday. Neighbors who've had enough of the gang violence in Brentwood are also stopping by.
I can't bear to see more children killed over the same thing. It's getting out of hand. It really is.
As if their murders weren't tragic enough, Kayla's mother, Evelyn Rodriguez, who became an anti-gang activist in light of her daughter's gruesome murder, was herself murdered for simply keeping her daughter's memory alive on September 14th, 2018.
50-year-old Rodriguez remembered as a fearless warrior who turned pain into passion, a mother on a mission. She bravely cried out for resources to keep kids safe.
You see people staying home now, holding their kids tight. Kids are going to school afraid.
Her message heard from the halls of Congress to the White House, the human face in a national awakening to MS-13 brutality.
Reports state that Rodriguez and a woman by the name of Anne-Marie Drago were at odds after the woman took issue with her memorial near the site of her daughter's murder. According to prosecutors, Anne-Marie, who was involved in selling her mother's house near the site, destroyed the memorial, threw away candles, a tablecloth, flower bouquets and vases, and put a table, photo, and floral arrangement in the back of her SUV and left. Then she returned and got into a dispute with Rodriguez and her husband over the memorial. Video footage shows the moments leading up to the unthinkable. During the confrontation, Anne-Marie, who was locked inside her car, accelerated the vehicle, fatally striking Rodriguez, who suffered a skull fracture and was pronounced deceased later at a hospital.
The parents of Kayla Cuevas, the teen slain by the MS-13 gang, became enraged when Anne-Marie Drago dismantled a memorial for their daughter hours before a vigil was to begin, marking 2 years since she and her high school classmate were murdered. A 911 call between a witness and dispatchers was played to jurors.
Suffolk Police 876, what is the location of your emergency?
This was just run over. Do you need an ambulance? Yeah, ambulance. Stay on the phone. Stay on the phone.
Is she conscious and alert?
No, she's not. Who is that that's yelling? That is her husband.
My Evelyn.
Anne-Marie was tried twice in connection with Rodriguez's death. One guilty verdict was overturned. The second trial ended in a hung jury. The court, in imposing the sentence, inferred Anne-Marie had suffered enough.
The defense plans on presenting evidence that Drago has suffered for years from PTSD after being attacked while working as a nurse.
A state appeals court overturned Drago's original conviction, ruling a previous prosecutor, quote, made improper comments during the trial, mischaracterized the evidence, and confused the jury. The guilty verdict was tossed.
She took away my mother, and all I ask is for justice.
And a mistrial has been declared on Long Island for a driver charged with hitting and killing a murder victim's mother.
The 63-year-old woman walked free after she was sentenced to 5 years probation for criminally negligent homicide. despite the district attorney recommending up to 3 years in prison.
A former nurse has been sentenced to 5 years probation. Now, this comes after allegedly killing Evelyn Rodriguez, an anti-gang activist, with her car.
We didn't get the justice that we was looking for, as far as that's considered. I mean, as far as her getting probation, that's like a slap in the hand.
Her daughter gave a victim's impact statement. She described Drago as a monster who was more concerned with making money on her mother's house.
And I just wanted her to know that you caused more pain and suffering than what we were already going through.
In October 2016, the MS-13 targeted 15-year-old Javier Castillo because he was believed to be a member of the 18th Street Gang, one of MS-13's main rivals. Federal prosecutors state that on October 10, 2016, several members of the Sailors clique convinced Castillo to drive with them to Freeport to smoke. Once there, they met Alexi Saenz and other Sailors clique members. The group then lured Castillo to an isolated marsh area in Cow Meadow Park, where they attacked him, taking turns hacking him to death with a machete. Afterward, the MS-13 members dug a hole and buried Castillo's body, which was not recovered until 1 year later, in October 2017. Castillo was determined to have suffered multiple sharp force injuries to his head, neck, torso, and extremities, a gruesome end to a teen aspiring to build a career as a mechanic, leaving his father to bear the pain of his lost son.
His family says his father looked for his missing son every single day. We spoke with him today. He didn't want his face on camera because he fears for his safety. I'm very upset. Any father or mother wants to see their child grow up and see what they'll do with their lives, not see what I'm seeing happen. He described his son as a good boy who was working as a mechanic and wanted to pursue a career as a mechanic.
On the evening of October 13, 2016, Alexi Saenz and other members of the Sailors clique of MS-13 were driving around central Islip and Brentwood in search of rival gang members, an activity they seemed to only live for. That night they spotted 34-year-old Dewann Stacks, and believing him to be a rival gang member, Alexi Saenz authorized his murder. While Alexi Saenz drove around watching for police presence, 3 MS-13 members, armed with 2 machetes and a baseball bat, got out of another vehicle and proceeded to beat and hack Stacks to death on American Boulevard, a residential street in Brentwood. Stacks sustained severe sharp and blunt force trauma to his face and head, leaving his body nearly unrecognizable. A pastor's daughter happened to spot his bludgeoned body on the side of the road and dialed 911 as he was still alive. Fighting for his life, he tried to hang on, but sadly, he was pronounced dead at the scene. Persons living in the area were stricken with fear, some afraid to even walk their dogs, and others choosing to move to somewhere new.
Dad, there's a body lying over there. That's what Pastor Marvin Lozano's daughter said when she spotted a man in the street during a late-night coffee run Thursday around 11. Her father wasn't home, but he told her to call 911. I asked if the man was still breathing.
¿Él estaba respirando o no?
Mi esposa dice que sí.
Yes, my wife said he was breathing a little bit. We're both pastors, and she went over to say a prayer for him. But then all of the police arrived. Despite rescue efforts, police say he died on the scene just before midnight Friday.
On the morning of January 30th, 2017, Alexi Saenz and other members of the Sailors clique of MS-13 spotted 29-year-old Esteban Alvarado-Bonilla inside a central Islip deli. Bonilla was wearing a football jersey bearing the number 18, which led them to conclude that he was a member of their rival 18th Street gang, and they plotted to kill him. Several other MS-13 members obtained a mask and another vehicle that would be used to commit the murder. The car was driven by a member named Jose Suarez. Alexi Saenz provided the clique's 9mm handgun for use in the murder. Surveillance footage from the deli shows at approximately 10:30 a.m., a masked MS-13 member named Mario Lopez entered the deli, approached Bonilla from behind, and fired one shot into the back of his head, then repeatedly fired into his body as it fell to the ground before fleeing the scene. One of the bullets pierced through his head and struck the chest of a female employee of the deli. The deli employee survived the gunshot wound, while Bonilla was rushed to Northwell Health Southside Hospital in Bay Shore, where sadly he was pronounced deceased. 24-year-old Suarez was apprehended and sentenced to life imprisonment after admitting he was trying to earn his stripes for an MS-13 affiliate when he served as the getaway driver in the slaying. Law enforcement arrested a number of MS-13 members, including Alexi Saenz and his brother in 2018, trying them for murder along with numerous other crimes. When prosecutors brought up the death penalty for the brutal murder of Kayla Cuevas and Nisa Mickens, Alexi and his brother, along with their associates, laughed before the faces of family members, showing no remorse for their heinous actions. As it stands, family members are disappointed the death penalty was taken off of the table, and instead Alexi Saenz is facing 40 to 70 years behind bars. That plea deal depends on his brother also pleading guilty to the charges. While not the desired outcome by the families of their victims, it's a dent to a much bigger gang problem. May those affected rest in peace, and their loved ones have the strength to overcome the grief. For more true crime documentaries, check out one of the videos on the screen. This has been an episode of Mysteries, where true stories from around the world come to life. What stories come next? Like, share, comment, and subscribe to never miss what intriguing chronicles will be told.